This video is made for adult collectors because this toy is exceedingly rare. Animated's toy line is very beloved by many people, and with the return of animated toys in Legacy, the resurgence of people looking for old animated toys is on the rise. For some reason, that specific line took me like 9 takes to do. I hate it. So with people hunting, there are some animated toys that are totally worth tracking down, and a couple that aren't, and then there's the rare ones. This is animated Blackout, and his release to everywhere other than Japan was cancelled with the cancellation of animated itself. In Season 4, he was supposed to have an Earth mode and all that, but it never ended up seeing the light of day because we never saw Season 4. So is this worth the hunt and the high prices he commands online? Animated Blackout is a tough thing. It's rare, like pretty rare now. And it's such a neat looking thing, but as a toy itself, it isn't exactly the greatest. He looks neat. Obviously not accurate to what we saw in the show because we only saw him in his Cybertronian mode for like 5 seconds, but I love the head sculpt. It's such an interesting shape, like Stewie from Family Guy, along with the mustache and that's a killer stash, bro. He is based off of his movie counterpart, so there's a lot of cues there, such as the propellers on the back and the fact that it's a helicopter, the stature where the cockpit ends up. It's very movie, which is an aspect I very much like. His main issue is his articulation, so I'll touch on that when I get to that segment. But an issue I have with this based on it being used is that he doesn't come with a disc for his gun, but like, I also don't really mind that much. I honestly think it looks cooler in helicopter mode, but I'll talk about that later. This panel here is so incredibly loose. Again, it's used. And it really brings me back to Bulkhead, whose issues were like all used related, and honestly the next animated toy I buy is going to be brand new. The gun can clip onto his hand, and honestly that looks pretty sick. You could use it as a ranged or a melee weapon, and it clips to both hands. He has gorilla arms though. Pain. He looks top heavy, but surprisingly he isn't. The way they did the legs and the heels makes him actually like very stable when he's standing up. If he does like a pose or something, he might fall over, but you can angle his toes and heels to make him stand properly, so he's not gonna like topple. I know he looks like it, but he's very stable. So animated toys weren't exactly made for their posability. Like they are now, obviously, with animated Prowl coming out, and you know, hopefully that animated Optimus Prime rumor is true and we get a new one, because this, yeah. But Blackout here, you're not going to get him into anything, really. Focus on the toy. It's just... Okay. He's got no head movement. That's number one. The head wiggles, but that's it. It doesn't turn. I've tried to pull it out. It doesn't pull out to move. It doesn't move side to side. It doesn't go up or down. It's just there. Okay, cool. Arms can do a full 360, but they do bump into the back stuff, but that's fine. They only go out that far. That's it. That's all you get. Why couldn't they have just cut a slit into here so you could get even more out? But that's as far as it goes. He does have double hinges here, so you can get them closer to the shoulder if you want, but if you collapse it, then you can't move it out at all. So it has to be out all the way, and that's as far as it goes. You have a bicep rotation and an elbow bend, but you know, he's gorilla armed, so it's not going to look right. No wrist swivels, but the fingers are articulated. They are separate, so that's actually pretty cool. I like that. I also wasn't expecting a waist joint. It's not necessary for the transformation at all. That is literally just there to be a piece of articulation. So I like that. Hips are on universal joints. They can go forward and back, in and out. Ooh, you've got, that didn't sound very good. You have above the knee rotation, but it only really works when it's down here. Because as you heard, this panel piece here bumps into the thigh and makes that weird clicking noise. So you have to bend the knee in order to use it, but he has the thigh swivel. He also has that knee bend. It's really like low, so the leg looks weird when you bend the knee, and then the toes can move down if you want to, if you can use that at all. But he is not very posable at all. I think the worst part is the head and the shoulders. The gorilla arms you can sort of get around, but if you could move the head and move the shoulders out a bit more, it would be nice. But because you can't do that, he just sort of struggles to articulate. And then there's this. Oh, this is bothersome. This really is bothersome. But yeah, it's a shame. Like, Lugnut wasn't exactly the most posable thing in the world, but Lugnut at least can move his shoulders out. This can't. It sucks. Transformation on a toy like this isn't often shown because of its scarcity, so I'll actually walk you through it. So the transformation is actually just kind of what you would expect, honestly. It's generic helicopter transformation. I mean, generic ever since the movies came out. But start with, you tuck the hands in, just like so. Then you want to untab the waist. Now the reason you want to do this is because the waist triggers the mechanism that folds this up, right? You plug the waist in and the propellers go back. So you can't really latch it together. So the next step is waist, propellers. Let's just straighten them out now. Very sort of Blackout-y. You want to fold these up like that. Then you just sort of take this front section here and split it. Split it. Oh my God. I'm trying to be a little careful with this because it is rare. I don't want to break it. There we go. Bring this forward and clip it into place. I love how that just sort of collapses. It's super satisfying. That's really satisfying. Then you want to bring the legs out, fold in the heel spurs, fold up the toes, fold this around like that. And you want to make it so that the legs are facing this way. Tab them together and then clip it into place at the top. Bring the arms up, sort of collapse them down into the body there, fold these around, and as usual this one's just sort of going to not stay where I want it to. Fold that around, and then the only piece of parts forming. I know it's not the worst thing in the world, but you do have to, taking it off is a pain in the butt. You do have to remove it for transformation. I will say be careful because every time I remove it, this part right here flexes very uncomfortably. Let's see if I can do it again. Yeah, you hear that? That doesn't sound great. So just be careful, please, with that part because it's going to break. Now, if you do get this sort of like looseness with these here, one thing I've noticed is if I press it in really hard into the toy, it seems to stay until I like touch it again. But if I press it in as hard as I can, it stays. So that at least works for me. This side, again, has no problem. But if you encounter this, if you do end up buying one of these, just press it in. That should work perfectly fine. But there you have helicopter mode. Helicopter. This looks amazing. The helicopter is stylized in its proportions, but just that right amount for it to still look like it could exist in the real world. I love the cockpit section, the way it compresses. He's full of guns and missiles adorning the front, so like I wouldn't want to mess with this thing. It's really nice and satisfying to pick up too. The in-hand feels great and it's a solid alt mode. But then there's the propellers. They look cool and they have nice tooling on them, but because of the way that they're shaped and I don't know, they hit the tail when turning it, so it really doesn't work super well. I think the tail just needed to be out a little bit further for it to not do that. Also, this is what the back looks like without the disc, and honestly, it makes it look a lot more futuristic to me, so I like the way that that looks. Because animated takes place in the future, right? And so having a Dyson fan-like tail rotor kind of makes sense to me, so I'm into it. I like having it, but it's not the best figure. It has issues, but like, it's the same sort of issues a figure like Lugnut has. It's painted well and tooled pretty well, but the experience of messing with it isn't the greatest. That and he's like extremely short. If you're an animated completionist or rare collector, then I would get one. That's probably when I would get one. I have a shelf of like rare toys, so I'm okay with buying it and he's gonna go on that shelf. But if you're just willy-nilly looking for animated toys, I honestly would say skip this one, especially for the prices he goes for. I paid $100 for this thing, Canadian, and I've seen him go for a lot more and come with a lot less. So it's a very hard pill to swallow and a very hard sell right now. So I'm hoping Hasbro makes a legacy animated Blackout at some point, because it would be great to actually get an official one. Now that we're getting canceled G2 toys, it would be great. Also, should probably say thanks to Bai for hooking me up with this thing. They helped me find it, so it's great. But that's my look at animated Blackout. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.